Lost Corp welcomes you, pilot, to our updated scouting guide for patch 3.17. With the new patch comes new changes. While not all the changes may be welcome, this video aims to help everyone understand CIG's changes to the scanning mechanics so that mining operations remain to be as efficient, thus as lucrative, as possible. We'll start with a quick overview of scanning, describe these changes, then we'll cover the best methods to adapt with these changes. So let's get started. Let's go over how scanning works. Initially, before scanning, the tab key is used to send out pings. This will show the outlines of the surrounding terrain, revealing scatter fields with a square in its center, indicating there is an object within the scanner's field of view. This object can be anything: a station, a vehicle, some loot or lootable debris, or mineable rocks. For the purpose of this video, we are focusing on finding these mineable rocks, chiefly the most coveted kind, Quantanium. Once a field is isolated, we can head towards it, and eventually the object will reveal itself, bringing us into our second phase, where we can scan the contents of the object. Provided that you are within 850 meters of this mineable node, changing the heads-up display to the scanning mode using the default key, that is V, will allow us to scan with a left click. If you find some suitable rocks, then you can get to mining. If it fails to meet your standards for approval, just repeat the process until you find a rock that is of favorable size and yield. Within the 3.17 persistent test universe, the biggest change that many miners noticed was this significant reduction of range for passive scanning in ships. Sending pings for boxes or fields seems to be unchanged with its range of 13 kilometers, but the most noticeable change in 3.17 is the range for determining the type of mineable rocks and how many there are within that proximity. The passive scanning has been significantly reduced from 5 kilometers in patch 3.16 to 850 meters with a 180-degree scanning field of view in patch 3.17. This does make it harder for pilots to stumble upon mineable nodes while speeding in a straight line, which was the preferred method for miners in patch 3.16. Lost Corp extends our gratitude to Sniping Jet and his in-depth video on using the scanning method. We can now easily determine how many rocks are in a pinged field, along with some helpful keybinds to improve this method of scanning, which we are about to cover. This improved scanning method, as described from Sniping Jet, does involve the use of switching back and forth between the scanning field of views to get an initial wide cone scan, then decrease the field of view to determine the contents of a scatter field. By default, you can use the period key to decrease the size of this cone, and you can use the comma key to increase the angle of this cone for scanning. He also does recommend changing the keybinds for the flight radar category to make it easier for the user to use this method. Our research at Lost Corp of this method, as described by Sniping Jet, has determined some noteworthy factors you would benefit from understanding. There are 3 conditions to keep in mind while performing your scans. The first condition is that the field you are scanning is not obstructed by terrain or other objects. Be sure that your ship would have a clear line of sight towards the field that you are scanning. Sniping Jet mentions this and demonstrated flying a higher altitude in Lyria airspace before scanning the terrain. The second condition is for the ship to remain stationary while performing the refined scan to prevent complications. The reason being, the smaller field of view will need to be focused steadily in order to keep the box within its radius. The third condition involves using the ship's crosshair as the center of your scanner. Your scanner's field of view centers both the X and Y axes to the middle of your ship's crosshair, so that the box you are scanning must be as centered as possible. Given the changes in 3.17, scouts will be required to be aware of sites on a more regular basis. However, it is important to note that while scanning seems to have changed, the general guidelines for identifying quant nodes remains the same, as scouts will be flying in a more indirect path in order to scan pinged sites up close. So it is to say that it is better to fly slower than to gun the engines and waste precious seconds to find out that the scannable object was a single gray rock. Speaking of those gray rocks, we've noticed that Quantanium rocks are darker by comparison to other minables from about 5 kilometers. That said, in daylight, you'll be able to notice the Quantanium clusters and couples from 5 kilometers without wide scanning, as wide scanning might not pick up everything that is near. Gathering all this information, the range of passive scanning is reduced from 5 kilometers to 850 meters. The use of the scanner's field of view is more heavily focused upon in scanning, and ships that are classed for scanning does not boost the capabilities of the current scanner. This concludes our presented guidance for efficient scanning in 3.17. While it presents new challenges for all active miners, the greatest challenge for Lost Corp mining operations will be on our scouts, who will have to work a little harder this patch for the big payout. Thank you for watching. Lost Corp always appreciates its aces in its ranks. If you are not currently a member of Lost Corp, but would like to get lost with us, then please inquire within our Discord server linked below. May the verse be with you, citizen.